It is the week of tearing down walls. Yeah. It's the week of being moral. It's the week of learning to find our way. And it is November the 29th, 2000. Oh yeah, baby. We're living in the future 16. Oh, baby. We got a load for shoulders today. Woo-hoo-hoo. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. The world is simple. You close your eyes, you miss everything. You sit and listen to one story, you know one thing. You listen to one side of an event, you know nothing. Many layers to deception when it comes to the nuclear. The big boy, the bad boy, the biggest troublemaker this planet's ever gonna see. Nothing can touch that rootlessness known as the crazy freaking industry. And today, we got such a bad story. It's so heartbreaking when you gotta think about who you can trust. You gotta think about, you gotta literally, figuratively be worried about the people that have been around for decades. It's horrible. It's unconscionable. And so the evidence, I know, it's not simple to wrap your mind around. It's not. Listen to Alice Jones.
Now, joining us is Dr. Christopher Busby. He's a chemical physicist and British scientist who's advised the Parliament and the EU, llrc.org. And he heads up the low-level radiation campaign. And everything that he has talked about has been coming true, unfortunately, and unfolding.
Okay.
And we can see for miles and miles the currents that come right at North America from Japan, the winds, the trade winds, the jet stream, all of it. And what he's saying here, I know most of you understand this, but I want this to really sink in.
I mean, I had the same problem with somebody in Brazil who was finding enormously high levels of radioactivity in the water, and he was assuming it was coming on the jet stream from Fukushima, which is impossible because it's just too far.
So that was 2014. Here's 2011, March the 25th.
Yeah. But the most common question that we get is how can people take steps to protect themselves from the radiation that's encircling the globe and not become victims like the people of Chernobyl and surrounding areas were. We have potassium iodide obviously selling out. You have the weaker liquid form of that, which is a good method to build up your body's defenses. Are we just limited to potassium iodide, or is there anything else that we can do to try and protect ourselves against this fallout, Dr. Busby?
Well, I think that there's not much that you can do, I'm afraid. You can stay indoors, that's the main thing, until it's died down. You can not drink milk and drink fresh water, eat tinned food and not fresh vegetables. But I don't.
I mean, I had the same problem with somebody in Brazil who was finding enormously high levels of radioactivity in the water, and he was assuming it was coming on the jet stream from Fukushima, which is impossible because it's just too far.
There you go. That's the show. Thank you, everybody. Pretty awesome. Half an hour just flew by. Well, we didn't need the half an hour. We just needed to tell that story. Everybody's like, what? What the? No, just kidding you, folks. Just funning you. I'm just funning you. Let's keep going. Now, what they're talking about was the radiation hotspot. Hot. It's hot. Sorry. It's so hot, baby. It's so hot. couldn't possibly be from.
Well, Alex, I'm pleased to be here again. I'm a bit confused myself about what's going on, I have to say.
2014.
The point is that the amount of radioactivity, if you do the calculations, the amount of radioactivity that's gone into the sea, by the time it's diluted and come across to America, would not be able to, on the basis of theory anyway, cause the kinds of increases in radioactivity that are being reported.
So he's talking about that number there, 1400% baseline radiation. It's naturally occurring material, not radioactivity from Fukushima. Don't let babies or kids inhale it or eat the shit, though. EPA claimed no harmful radiation could reach the U.S. is idiotic.
And we could see for miles and miles the current.
I mean, I had the same problem with somebody in Brazil who was finding enormously high levels of radioactivity in the water, and he was assuming it was coming on the jet stream from Fukushima, which is impossible because it's just too far.
Anyway, I'm really horrified that the feds abandoned the Fukushima radiation monitoring. One scientist, inexplicable that the EPA shut down the Fukushima radiation monitoring. So I got a good clip coming up here and two more headlines. EPA will no longer conduct radiation monitoring related to Fukushima. Unless it's North Korea, we'll be all over it. We'll be rocking, baby. If it's North Korea, don't you freaking worry. And RadNet monitors were shipped out. This is June the 23rd, 2011.
A lady called in who's very earnest, very...
Now, this is the 15th of March, 2011. Alex is all over it.
Focused, very informed. We confirm it is the phone number for the Montgomery, Alabama federal sub-agency that tests the air for and water for radiation. We're going to call them live on air.
USCPA, how can I help you?
Hi, ma'am. My name's Alex Jones. I'm doing a syndicated radio broadcast, and I've had callers calling in telling me that they, one particular lady who called you just about an hour ago, your office.
Who was that?
It was one of my listeners, so we were just confirming what she said, that she had talked to some folks in your office specifically about response to any fallout coming from Japan on the West Coast, that you were one of the main offices that tests that. Can I be put in contact with the specific sub-office, the air and water radiation measurement office there?
Yep. Next week. So at the height of Fukushima emergency, it was emergency because it was coming over in the jet streams. And we know it was coming over in the jet streams. That's a fact. If you're not familiar with how that stuff works. Latest forecast from the Norwegian Institute for Air Research had all of California under radiation threat, and rain with 20 million. So this is evidence. Yeah. Simon Fraser University. These are all studies linked below it. These are all major institutions. That not evidence? Is that evidence? I'm asking a simple question. Anybody is going to sit there and give me a bunch of thumbs down, which is panicking. They're panicking when they do that to you. You know you're winning when you get more thumbs down. It means you're winning in this particular entity. When we only provide documentation only, we don't play games, right? And so we go right to the sources of the energy. Go out and debunk all of these institutions and then talk to me. This is Canadian one showing unpublished. Yeah? No one can imagine. Well, we did. We went out and done the Fukushima expeditions on the coastline. Well, that's Japan. We went out and done the coastline of Canada. And we showed for 260 days, 15,000 miles, we showed an extinction event. These are the before and after. This is the zodiacs that we took up the coastline. Well, I done 5 months by myself on this one in the middle of nowhere. It's all up at the nuclear proctologists, all these arrows, all the pictures from all the expeditions are up there. Let's keep moving. Let's keep rolling. Because we got more video clips to start playing. And I'm always got to do a bunch of shifting to keep this in motion. Hang on. Here we go. We're almost there. Forgot to count the numbers. Radnet monitoring shipped out of boys.
A lady called in and
we
said
played that. Yeah, okay. So next one, the height of Fukushima. Gotcha. So CC-134, 137, these are tracers. They were found in the milk. Okay. So we'll come back from there after. And next.
Well, I mean, as far as that's concerned, if you take me, I'm one of the few people that squeaks about this stuff, and I just get attacked continuously from all over the place.
Yeah, well, you're a contradiction, yeah?
And it turned out the thing had a half-life. You know, he
talking
got
about
some tissues and measured the
radiation
half-life, put
found?
it in a plastic bag and so on. And it turned out to be quite a short half-life, so it was obviously radon. It could.
But there's so many isotopes with so many short half-lives. It's absolutely... Now, this is 3 years later.
Now, I had a look at... I've been following measurements made by the US RadNet system, which is an excellent system, you know, so long as it works, and it usually does, where you can see levels of radioactivity or radiation of different energies plotted out from a number of different stations throughout the United States. And of course, at the same time, since...
Okay. Bear with me. Try that again. So it was found in the food, right? It was the plume models we just showed you. You had Korea closed 130 schools. In California, this is certified, if you go read through the stuff, was 10 times higher radiation. These headlines are the evidence of that the evidence was out there. So let's keep playing his clip, because he says it wasn't there, right? Let's play it.
Since Fukushima, we've had a whole...
Because that's how he justifies what he's saying. That it's too far away, couldn't get there, and besides, radon, blah, 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 blah.
A huge number of people actually buy Geiger counters and put themselves on networks where they report the measurements that they've been taking. And I've followed with great interest this extraordinarily useful development. But by and large, what they've been measuring has been radon in rainwater. And so people, you know, over the last year or so have been getting terribly excited because suddenly they get 5 times
background of radon. Okay. Keep doing that, Dana. You'll get it at some point. Washington and air monitors. There was all these elevated radiation in Germany, Sweden. That was all radon, right? Canada showed 100 times, iodine 131, 10 times more 132, 30 times more 133, 31 times more 129 with a 15 million year half-life.
And of course, the news today, reactor core may be breached at damaged Fukushima plant. Bloomberg News, Japan's nuclear regulator said one reactor core at the quake-damaged Fukushima power plant may be cracked and leaking radiation. Quote, it's very possible that there has been some kind of leak at the number 3 reactor. Hidehiko Nishiyama, a spokesman at the Japan Nuclear Industrial Safety Agency, said in Tokyo today. While radioactive water at the unit most likely escaped from the reactor core, it also could have originated from spent fuel pools stored atop the reactor, he said. And so what the mainstream media is reticent to report is the fact that reactor number 3, which is the one that was hit, you'll remember, by that massive fireball explosion we saw on March 14th, is the reactor that contains the deadly MOX plutonium-uranium mix that is in none of the other reactors there at the site.
Well, the MOX is 2 million times worse. Now, let's come back over. wouldn't go into that for some
background, or even sometimes 10, 15,
They reject concerns.
20 times background by measuring rainwater. Well,
you need a really sophisticated Geiger counter to measure rainwater, by the way.
And asked them to measure the rate at which the radioactivity decays in the rainwater samples, and usually it's very rapid, which suggests that it is radon, natural radon. But having said that, the levels of natural radon seem to be increasing, and I'm a bit puzzled about that too. Now, as far as the Fukushima radiation coming to the United States, this report from LA and from San Diego, talking about a 5-fold excess. I followed this up and had a look at the weather patterns for those areas and looked at the RadNet measurements, which are on the internet, and where you can see these levels of gamma radiation plotted. And in fact, they plot very much on the top of fog banks. So if you look at fog banks, which of course fog banks occur a lot in California, and as the fog floats in, so the radiation levels go up. Now, I think that the radiation levels would go up anyway as the fog comes in, because there's more material there to cause gamma radiation from quite natural sources. But I'm not saying
from natural source, but I'm not saying he's all over the place.
That's it. So I mean, having said all this stuff, I know it sounds a bit waffly.
Not a little bit, a whole lot. It's like all waffly, isn't it? Because we know these numbers from all over the friggin' planet. Right, from all over the friggin' planet, we got these numbers, but no, it can't be here. And it deserves more than 129 words by Chris Busby. Unprecedented phenomenon from using salt water. This is, I meant to bring up this headline in context with what Paul Watson was saying about Unit 3 in the last clip before Busby. Nuclear fallout will engulf Taiwan starting April the 6th. People should stay at home. It was going everywhere. But Busby, New York Times confirmed California rainwater 181 times above the standards, which is no standard is safe when it comes to iodine 131. I'm not going to bring up the list of isotopes right this second, but...
And so your Geiger counters and your EPA radiation detectors are just not going to pick up this mix of plutonium and uranium. And this is what we'll be talking to Chris Busby about later in the show. It's the most deadly form of radiation, and it's also invisible to all these detectors that they're using to tell us that everything's going to be okay.
Yeah. And there's a link between birth defects and eating radioactive contaminated food and drinking of water. And one piece of contamination food may deliver radiation of hundreds. Just a couple are very harmful to you.
But I mean, I would like to wait and see somebody actually measure the gamma radiation spectrum.
Well, we did. We just showed you endless. And it was, you knew it was out there, right? It's not like he didn't know this stuff existed. This was March 29, 2011. All of this stuff, iodine particles appear to concentrate near Northern California Norwegian Institute. Surely to goodness, he could have known that stuff. This is what makes it so heartbreaking.
Of whatever it is that's supposed to be coming in and causing the irradiation of America, because it's very hard to imagine how there could be a 5-fold increase in natural background radiation from the sort of material that's coming from Fukushima. It's just too far away. But having said
that, you had lost all credibility. This highly lethal mixed uranium plutonium oxide, MOX, that was nanoparticle into a sulfur peroxide hydrogen buckyballs.
Write that up in encouraging people to visit those websites. You mentioned that proponents of the nuclear industry downplaying this, which is it's not right, but it's understandable why they're doing it. But what baffles me is these self-proclaimed environmentalists, and I'm specifically talking about British environmentalist George Monbiot, who has been writing articles for The Guardian over the past 2 weeks, including his most recent one, Why Fukushima Made Me Stop Worrying and Love Nuclear Power. And Monbiot writes that critics of the nuclear industry have, quote, wildly exaggerated the dangers of radioactive pollution. So, Dr. Busby, given the fact that Monbiot claims is this preeminent environmentalist icon, why is he completely disregarding the threat of nuclear fallout and treating it as if it's some, nutritious health benefit?
Well, I have to say that I know George Monbiot, and he doesn't know anything. This is really the problem. Most of these pundits that come out, they're not scientists, they're not researchers. They have never done any research in this area, and so they tend to rely upon people that tell them things, and I guess he's relying upon all of the misinformation coming from the nuclear industry lobby and their friends. Otherwise, there's no possible explanation for what he's saying, because what he's saying is total nonsense. In fact, it's criminally irresponsible for him to write what he writes, given that he doesn't know anything. I mean, at minimum, he ought to say, well, I don't know anything, but this is what I think.
Yeah. I can think of somebody else should say that right now, too. And his name is Busby. Not that. It's Busby. He's doing the same thing. Like, how could Busby not know this exists? Huh? How, that goes right into your lungs. It's brutal. Burns a hole in your lungs. 40 million becquerels. No, 1,500. Geez, that was radon. 40 million becquerels of iodine, 131 already sourced out. Now, the thing about this is, it's not just Busby, is it?
Now, I had a look at. I've been following measurements made by the U.S. RadNet system, which is an excellent system, so long as it works, and it usually does. Where you can see levels of radioactivity or radiation of different energies plotted out from a number of different stations throughout the United States, and of course, at the same time, since Fukushima, we've had a huge number of people actually buy Geiger counters and put themselves on networks where they report the measurements that they've been taking. And I've followed with great interest this extraordinarily useful development. But by and large, what they've been measuring has been radon in rainwater. And so people, over the last year or so have been getting terribly excited because suddenly they get 5 times background, or even sometimes 10, 15, 20 times background by measuring rainwater, and I've then asked them to measure the rate at which the radioactivity decays in the rainwater samples, and usually it's very rapid, which suggests that it is radon, natural radon. But having said that, the levels of natural radon seem to be increasing, and I'm a bit puzzled about that too.
Here's a plume coming out of Japan in one model. It's just cesium-137. It's just based up on a single release from a single reactor. It's not based up on the inventories, the 6 reactor cores in each building. Within a few days, it's going to hit North America. It's hitting North America to your right. Here we go. Boom. Now, the thing about this plume was that it didn't stop coming out of Japan. It didn't stop. It still hasn't stopped coming out of Japan. And no matter what model you look at, that is what you will see continuously coming out of Japan. You see the red where it's continuously coming. Keep your eye on that. North America's being hit and pounded and grounded. And it's bye-bye to your children's future and your loved ones and the species. No matter what the model is on your right-hand side. You can see, that's right there, Japan, but this is the other side of the world. Now it's going to come over and hit North America. It's hit North America. Within a few days, it's traveled across North America. There's Newfoundland, where I'm from originally, many decades ago. Now it's crossing the Atlantic. It's coming over to your country. And this model is the 23rd of March. 24th of March. Now it's hitting European countries, Iceland, Greenland, Labrador, the northern oceans, the Pacific, the Atlantic now is wide. The whole thing is contaminated. The model stopped. Pollution didn't. The actual disposition never stopped. We've seen that one. Here's another model that Busby says doesn't exist.
Now, as far as the Fukushima radiation coming to the United States, this report from LA and from San Diego, talking about a 5-fold excess, I followed this up and had a look at the weather patterns for those areas and looked at the RadNet measurements, which are on the internet, and where you can see these levels of gamma radiation plotted. And in fact, they plot very much on the top of fog banks. So if you look at fog banks, which of course fog banks occur a lot in California, and as the fog floats in, so the radiation levels go up.
Yeah.
Now,
when it falls out of the sky, the levels go up. That's the way she rolls. That's just the way it rolls. And I know for hardcore Busby fans, nothing I show you will matter. You just refuse to consider that there's a right and a wrong. And you have to consider that there's a right and a wrong. That right and wrongs. I have no idea what's going on here. Well, let's come over and hang on. I just kill the computer. Remember to kill 9 of my computers in the first year I was at this. My computer just went down. 10. How many computers you buy a year? Hugs for everybody. This computer's fucked up. We'll get it at some point. Don't worry about it. I'll figure it out next time. My computer's gone. I can't bring me up. And I can't afford to buy another computer. They bankrupted me, arrested me twice, tried to arrest me 2 other times. I'm still here. Still back. Eat 1 meal a day, and I work like a dog. To bring you another narrative, a real narrative, a proper narrative, an important narrative, the right narrative. And at some point, it won't be me, it'll be all the crazies because I didn't get my voice heard. I didn't get the opportunity to build a production and the facility and get the people and come out and bang into these people. But I tried. So did you. Hugs for everybody.